Aloha nerds, and welcome back to another episode of the Salawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. That is really weird, isn't it? I'm working on that. We'll see how that goes later. I just saw the Doctor Strange episode of Marvel's What If. Now, I haven't done any reviews for Marvel stuff. Not that I haven't recorded anything, I just wasn't happy with what I did. So, but this episode I thought was fantastic. If you have not been watching, Marvel's What If is an alternate reality animated exploration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. And, the first episode had Peggy Carter becoming Captain Britain as opposed to Steve Rogers becoming Captain America. That one was okay. My initial thoughts off of that was, well, okay, you just retreaded Captain America and just did something slightly different. It was okay, but I think, fair enough. It's a sort of a break-in to get you to get, okay, this is what we're doing. But I really felt every episode since then has gotten better and better and better. And actually, I am 1 week behind at this moment. I have not watched the zombie episode yet. But I love Black Panther as Star-Lord. That episode is great. The episode just before this with the Avengers getting assassinated before they could become Avengers was great. I really loved that one. It was very classic, typical kind of detective story, but because of the characters it was using, it was really fun. But this one I loved. It was so personal and emotional. I think, that's the story stuff. That's the juicy, steaky stuff that, as a pretentious nerd, I really appreciate character development and, character shit. But especially as a nerd, I love seeing all the flashing lights and cool weird shit. So this episode gave me everything I like. A really deep personal story with a main character who we just follow. And it feels like a little short film. It feels, in both short and film, it feels like a movie. I really love good quality storytelling. And I could not believe that, mega spoiler alert, I'm talking about the ending here. I could not believe that the ending was tragic. I really didn't see that coming. Actually, the previous episode was pretty dark too, but damn, this one really went for it. And this is the juicy stuff I would really hope to see more in the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe, where we can have more personal stories, more questionable morality choices. It doesn't have to be as dark as with Ant-Man, those who know of the comics, at least through Wikipedia or documentaries or however we learn it. If you know vaguely a little bit about the original Ant-Man, there's apparently comic book stories where he's beating his wife, which is really messed up. Obviously, they did not want to put that in a PG-13 movie that's supposed to appeal to little kids. But on the other hand, that's where little kids learn great values. I mean, Matilda had abusive parents. Growing up, I had Matilda that had abusive parents in that movie, and that's what happens for the length, and abusive adults. And there's a lot of very dark things in that movie, but it's about coming out on top and staying positive and all this stuff. But in this case, when we come to Doctor Strange, we're front loaded with sort of the fun and the sadness. There's a little bit of The Time Machine, the remake with Guy Pearce. In that movie, that is essentially the story taking place in this. So, I've already gone to the spoiler of this episode, but essentially, spoilers for The Time Machine with Guy Pearce. That movie starts off with Guy Pearce as a renowned scientist. He's working on something fantastic. He and his wife go for a stroll, and his wife dies. In this scene, I believe it's like a carriage hits her, and he builds a time machine essentially to go back and save her life, and he does. We only see it one more time. He goes back in time one time and tries to save her, and instead she gets killed by a gunman. And then we immediately go to him just realizing this is going to happen every single time, even though he only did it one more time. Story-wise and fun-wise, it seems like, wouldn't you try at least one more time? It's a time machine. Going with the idea that he's so smart, even if he's playing it as if he did do it more times, if we don't see it, it almost didn't happen. But in this case, in the case of this episode, we see Doctor Strange try over and over and over again. So essentially the change that happens in this what if, the original, in the original Doctor Strange movie, Doctor Strange is driving by himself, car accident, and hands get crushed. You know, he's a surgeon who's famous for his fantastic handwork, and we get to see him pull off 2 surgeries, one right after the other. 2 impossible surgeries that it would only take a surgeon this good to accomplish. But it's his hands that get taken out, and he's a vain guy, and he's a selfish guy, and he doesn't even really care about his somewhat lover, until he loses his hands, loses everything, and goes on a great journey. And he just comes back full circle and needing her and realizes, Jesus Christ, I'm an idiot. You were... But in the case of the What If episode, Doctor Strange isn't like that. He actually treats her right. They have a beautiful, close, loving relationship. But in this situation, they're driving to the same or a similar event, and the car accident happens and she dies. And so he goes back in time over and over and over again in order to try to save her life. Why he doesn't use magic spells to stop the car that hits them, I don't know. But, you know, either way, there's, you know, the beautiful short story, short film thing of seeing this desperate attempt to make this, to correct this horrible, awful thing that happens. And just watching, even though he's an animated character, watching the slow crushing of this person's soul. You know, we're reliving this event. You know, he's not stopping it from happening. It still happens. But it's crushing his soul to keep stewing on it like that. And it kind of, what I like about it is it kind of, you can extend that to sort of a metaphor to how people deal with things in real life. That's what I like about really good, juicy character stories. It is like a guy who lost someone in real life and they just cannot, just that suffering, they cannot remove themselves from. And just the desperation and the darkness for how far it went and how broken he was at the end, that he becomes this supreme villain, you know, worse than Dormammu, or presumably Dormammu himself. And it's really heartbreaking at the end when it doesn't work out. It's just that this one immutable event essentially enables the greatest evil to occur. So in the original Doctor Strange, he learns his powers and is able to defeat Dormammu with his wits and with magic, but with his wits. You know, he really uses the magic in the right way in order to create a scenario where Dormammu could be defeated. But it's OP versus OP, and what I appreciate about the movie is that it doesn't run away from the OP. Maybe Dormammu could have looked a little cooler, but it doesn't run away from the notion that these people are overpowered, and the only way to make an overpowered person, the only way to stop an overpowered person is to convince them. So you have to speak to them on their terms. And in essence, Doctor Strange, you know, he's fighting the ultimate, most destructive being in the universe that has come to devour the universe. And he uses time in order to trap that guy in a loop where he is always destroying Doctor Strange, but he's never able to actually achieve his goal. So it's a completely perfect stalemate in which the villain just has to choose not to eat the universe. Otherwise, he will be trapped in an eternal limbo, stuck with this annoying, arrogant asshole. And it's like, the worst part of destroying the world is customer service. You know, so Um, so in essence, in this what if, you know, spoiler, by not having the motivating event to make him Doctor Strange, she could never prevent the destruction of the universe. And essentially, even if he becomes so powerful, he devours the thing that devours the universe, then he then must take the role of the thing that devours the universe. And it's the great tragedy of this particular universe, and definitely something I've pondered about, with these whole notions of the universe, like with these whole notions of the multiverse. Like if we entertain the notion that there's a multiverse, then most definitely at least a couple of those universes are taking each other out, or taking themselves out because of whatever scientific discovery they make. And if we're lucky, we live in the universe where they go, wait, don't push the end of the universe button. That's the universe we all hope we're in, like, please, please. Like, everyone, we're all praying for that same freaking thing. But this is the tragedy of this episode, is that, man, this is the universe that got ate up. This is the thing that destroys the universe, or the thing that destroys a man in this case, because in this case it's both. The man, his universe, the loss of that true love. And that agony broke this person to the point where he was unfixable. Essentially, in the end of the movie, even though Doctor Strange doesn't get his hands fully back, he just is able to be okay with it and live with it and just work with himself. So, although Doctor Strange is not in my top 5 or anything like that, I still am pretty wowed by the impressiveness of the movie overall, and happy with the fact that he did not, even though he's studied so much and defeated Dormammu, he still couldn't fix his hands. So there's something that he doesn't understand yet that is preventing him from fixing his own hands with magic, and so that's a really cool. This episode really strengthens my affection for the Doctor Strange movie. It's just that little, that's the best thing about superhero movies, when they leave that little, like the end of Spider-Man. She kisses Peter, and then he tells her, oh no, let's just be friends. And then she's like, what? But you liked me. You liked me. And then she goes, oh, I kissed you before. You're that dude. End of movie. You're like, oh my God, don't mess with me like that, man. And it makes you have to watch Spider-Man 2. So, that little thing is like, oh, how is he going to ever solve this problem? And maybe that answer is love, because he's kind of a loveless character in the movie. But in this episode, what makes him, he's incredibly likable, because he is arrogant. He's still an arrogant jerk, but he absolutely loves this woman. Like, this woman is his universe. Bingo. And because of that, he, it's like what they say of Helen of Troy, that the love between, for one woman that these two men had started a war. I don't know anything about that story, but you hear it in the universe. It's like that, where it's just like, Jesus, the love, or the lack of love, or the loss of love. And, the fun part about it being animation is that you can have these extreme images and visuals, and it's not too emotionally, because if this was live action, I'd probably just be depressed and crushed by it. But because it's animation and it's so zingy and fun, when it gets to those hard story points where he can't save the woman that he loves, and literally all was for nothing. Just watching the whole segment where he's absorbing all the other mystical beings into himself, and you're realizing, but then you're also absorbing their evils as well. Um, it's just, this Doctor Strange, the one from the What If episode, is the man who can't let go and can't move on. And the hero of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the guy who can. He didn't yet, but he can. He still wants, but he didn't learn what he needs to learn yet. And it's just that, our hero version learned humility, and the villain never did. And until it was too late. So, damn, the pure tragedy of that is, it's true Marvel. I'm not the biggest comic reader. I just have a good little stack of books like this much, maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, I love the movies and shows, but even in the movies and shows, they reflect things from the comics that the Spider-Man no more. However much the movie may have changed things, it happened. The fact that these comic book characters go the journey of really telling nice, emotional, real stories like that. I see this Doctor Strange episode, and I feel like you could take all the magic out of it, and this could be a guy in a bar who won't stop drinking, who is fucking up at work, who's doing all these things wrong. You could totally take all the magic out, and it still works. The magic makes it wonderful. The magic makes it Wizard of Oz with this type of story. And to me, that's what makes these comics sell in the first place. Think about the death of Superman that really kept the character going. But, you just have this epic journey of people looking up to someone and having to watch that person fall. But doing, the right thing. Like, he's staying true to his character. Like, that ending hits because even though as I was reading that, it felt a little hokey, a little too much build-up. Once you get to that ending, even though you know the title, it's just like, oh, geez, like, he really kept his frickin' word about being, fighting for justice and being willing to do whatever it took. You feel that. And then I had this set of Iron Man comics which take place after the Armor Wars. So I didn't get to read the Armor Wars. So this is as a teenager, I started getting into comics, and my parents got me this 10-issue set from the preceding the following 10 issues following Armor Wars. And in that, we watch Tony Stark struggle with alcoholism and struggle for the entire 10 issues with the trauma of fighting the Armor Wars, that he's so affected by it. It is ruining his life. He's not showing up for work. Because he's an inventor, he's invented his life model decoy, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's using his life model decoy to run the Stark Industries, and he's using War Machine. He's using War Machine, Rhodey, dressing up in the Iron Man suit to keep making Iron Man appearances, but he himself is just alone at home, freaking out, panicking, and just haunted by everything he went through and survived. And he's like, it's literally a sort of a post-Vietnam War type of story, Armor Wars. The 10 issues. I forget if it had a specific title, but I remember reading that, and just by the end of the 10 issues, when he actually comes back, and he puts on actually, I think it's like the 7th or 8th issue, he finally puts the Iron Man suit back on, and he has a couple struggles, but by the end of that 10 issues, he's like, I'm back. I am Iron Man. I'm okay. And it's such a great little struggle, great little story. It's a comic book, but that's beautiful storytelling. Again, you could take the fantastic elements, and it's a story about that guy. So with that connection in mind, as I was watching this What If, I was like, geez, this is a true Marvel comic made into a movie. I don't know if it has any actual connection to any What If comics. I never read any of that. But just knowing Armor Wars, or even the first issue of Spider-Man, that's a dark, heavy story. Again, it may have been a little hokey, a little cheesy, but it's just, Stan Lee was so young, or he would, he only had so many pages to write all this stuff. I mean, it's a little bit cheesy, but it's beautiful. The story itself, and the way it all was told is so beautiful and tragic. And when you read that Amazing Fantasy number 15, or when you read these 10 issues of Iron Man, the level of tragedy that hits these characters is genuinely literature. It's genuinely great writing and great storytelling. That is the goal of these materials, is to communicate your choices or your feelings, whatever you may be going through at the time. That's the function of art. And this What If episode completely represented those feelings to me when I read that. I think What If has definitely achieved what I wanted from these Marvel movies. I definitely wanted so much more of what we've gotten in the last 2 episodes. Is overall what I want from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Really good storytelling. You don't have to be heavy on plot. Just have really great writing, really great characters written very well, and consistent with the other material. I think these last 2 episodes just shine in that area, and I just was really impressed and moved by how well it was achieved. That by the end, and it's Benedict Cumberbatch's voice, and all the voices were from the movie. I was like, oh, yes, great. I hate it when you watch the animated one and it doesn't have the same voice, but it's supposed to be the events connecting the movie. I'm like, this is a cash grab. You totally suckered people, But I love it when there's a really dramatic story that doesn't waste your time. It doesn't have to be this serious, but the choice to do a story that's told this well is really nice. And it's a sci-fi story. It's a fantasy story, but it's the point of science fiction is either dystopian or utopian. It's like a set of choices. What you use your magic or science for will determine what becomes of your world. And we're seeing that with social media now. And we're seeing that with technology. That it doesn't take much to just spread a thought, and we become like this robot wave of thoughts, and we don't, where is it all coming from? There's so much going on. It's too much. It's too much information. It's too many ones and zeros. It's too much data. Too much. Even this right now, it's too much. But and it all has an inevitable outcome. There's only a certain number of inevitable outcomes of your choices in life, And what if is, if you don't remove obsession, if you don't get over it, or move on, or, what this split universe provided us was seeing the strength of the Doctor Strange, who could choose to move forward, versus the strength of the Doctor Strange who couldn't. And that's the true tragedy, is that even Doctor Strange gets to see himself be dissolved into this very sad evil. For the man who's lost everything, is like, that's this type of story. So just from a loving the comics that I've read point of view, and from a personal point of view, this show hit me on a lot of different levels. It just hit me in all these different places that I really appreciated. So yeah, that's my gut reaction to this show. Yes, very nerdy. Yes, a little pretentious, but definitely positive. I loved it. I like it. I like this episode. Yeah. But yeah, I really love this episode. Yeah, thanks for watching. Remember not to like, don't subscribe, and definitely do not comment. Aloha, and take it easy, folks.